Western Europe is sweltering this week, and the tea trade should pay attention. More than a dozen European countries have faced high-level heat warnings. Bordeaux pushed into extreme triple-digit heat. Geneva opened cooling options for seniors. France, Spain, Italy, Germany, Switzerland, Belgium, and the United Kingdom have all seen disruption to schools, transport, public events, outdoor work, and energy systems. This is not just a European weather story, however. It's a tea story. Europe has been warming faster than any other continent. Heat waves are arriving earlier, growing stronger, and becoming more disruptive. This week's heat has already affected French nuclear power output because the river water used for cooling is too warm or too scarce. That matters because energy strain translates into factory logistics and retail cost, as well as consumer stress. At the same time, El Niño has returned to the tropical Pacific. NOAA reports that El Niño conditions are present and expected to strengthen throughout the Northern Hemisphere winter. Earlier this month, WMO warned that the probability of El Niño emerging this summer was high. El Niño doesn't explain every heat wave. It does not create the same weather everywhere. But it does tilt the odds towards abnormal conditions. Drought in some regions, floods in others, hotter growing seasons, weaker or delayed rains, and greater uncertainty in agricultural production. Tea is highly exposed to that uncertainty. The tea bush requires reliable rainfall, moderate temperatures, humidity, drainage, and predictable seasonal growth. Too little rain slows the flush. Too much rain disrupts plucking and damages roots. High heat stresses both the bushes and workers. Dry conditions encourage pests such as red spider mites. Intense storms trigger erosion, landslide, road closures, and factory delays like we saw in Sri Lanka last year. Assam, Darjeeling, Sri Lanka, Kenya, and other tea-growing regions are already living with this pattern. Climate volatility is no longer a future risk. It's now an operating condition. The commercial impact is clear. Weather volatility becomes yield volatility. Yield volatility becomes auction volatility. Auction volatility becomes margin pressure for packers, brands, retailers, and food service buyers. Quality also becomes less predictable. The seasonal teas are harder to schedule. The smallholders absorb risk first, but the cost eventually moves throughout the entire supply chain. There's also a demand-side twist. Europe's heat reduces traditional hot tea consumption at times while increasing demand for iced tea, cold brew, herbal infusions, hydration products, and ready-to-drink formats. That creates a paradox. Climate stress can damage supply while pushing customers towards new tea formats that require reliable sourcing of ingredients. Business insight. The implication for tea professionals is direct. Buyers need to diversify origin risk. Producers need to invest in climate adaptation, drought-tolerant cultivars, shade, soil health, water retention, erosion control, pest monitoring, and worker heat protection. Brands need to prepare consumers for more volatility in pricing, time, and seasonal quality. The strategic issue is no longer whether climate change will affect tea. It already does. The question is whether the industry can move fast enough from reaction to resilience. Nepal's tea factories are reopening, but the country's export crisis is not yet resolved. Tea processors in Yapa and Ilam shut down after India tightened import procedures for Nepali tea. The disruption began on May 1st when India's Tea Board introduced a new standard operating procedure requiring laboratory testing for every contingent entering India. Producers say the process caused a 15-day delay in test results and a fee of 11,500 rupees per truck. Exports were halted for 3 weeks. Indian authorities later agreed to random sampling, But exporters say the problem returned when samples were collected from warehouses and shipments were told to wait for test reports before moving. The impact was severe. Nearly 100 factories were closed forcibly. More than 100,000 workers and 30,000 farmers were directly affected. Losses were estimated around 20 million rupees per day. Now, after government assurances, factories are reopening. Industry representatives say 30 CTC factories in Yapa resumed operations Thursday, and factories in the hill districts were expected to restart within a day or two. But the reason for reopening is important. Factories are not reopening because the export problem remains unsolved. They are reopening because fresh green leaf must be processed. If the leaf is left unplucked or unprocessed, farmers lose income immediately and quality deteriorates quickly. Processed tea may still need to remain in warehouses until export procedures become predictable. Nepal's government has formed a high-level task force through the Prime Minister's Secretariat that includes officials from several ministries and agencies such as Finance, Home Affairs, Foreign Affairs, Agriculture, Customs, Food Technology, Quality Control Standards, and Metrology, as well as the National Tea and Coffee Development Board. The group has 2 weeks to recommend immediate, medium-term, and long-term solutions. This is the right direction, but it's only a first step. Nepal's tea crisis is not simply about India, it's about dependence. Nepal produces more than 20 million kilograms of CTC and about 6.5 million kilograms of orthodox tea each year. Much of that 27 million kilos of tea depends on India as a market, a transit route, or a commercial gateway. That gives India practical leverage. It also exposes Nepal to recurring border friction, testing delays, and pressure from India tea interests, especially in West Bengal. The lesson is clear. Nepal needs stronger testing capability, credible certification, traceability, origin protection, and direct access to global buyers. Nepali tea is of high quality. The challenge is building the trust infrastructure to match that quality. Business Insight. The reopening is not the end of Nepal's tea crisis. It is a pause in an emergency. The strategic work now is to make Nepali tea less dependent on a single border and more accessible to the world. At auction, tea may appear available. Kenya may report strong demand. Colombo may have volume. Buyers may have orders in hand. But in the current market, that does not mean the tea can move smoothly from origin to destination. Kenya is the clearest example. The Mombasa auction remains central to the global black tea trade, but shifts in stock levels, routing, and destination risk are redefining availability. Africa Intelligence reports that Kenya tea has continued to flow into Port Sudan despite a long-running blockade and embargo. That tells us two things. First, the trade adapts when inventories build, and second, alternative routes are not frictionless. They can add costs, delay, insurance risk, payment risk, and uncertainty. Sri Lanka faces a similar challenge from a different angle. Ceylon tea is available, but Sri Lanka's heavy exposure to Middle Eastern markets makes logistics unusually sensitive to geopolitical disruption. When shipping lanes are unstable, when war risk premiums rise, or when buyers in key destinations slow purchases, tea at auction does not automatically become tea delivered. Now add U.S. tariff uncertainty. The U.S. Trade Representative has proposed new Section 301 duties tied to the enforcement of forced labor import controls. The proposed tariff rates are 10% for some economies and 12.5% for others, including several important tea origins and processing hubs. These duties are not yet final, but they matter now because contracts, pricing, and sourcing decisions are being made today. For importers, the takeaway is practical. Do not ask only, is the tea available? Ask, Can it ship? Can it clear? What route will it take? What will insurance cost? What tariff applies? And can the final customer absorb the landed price? For U.S.-bound tea, plan each scenario by origin. China, Japan, India, Sri Lanka, Vietnam, Taiwan, and Bangladesh all deserve close review. The tariff headline is only one part of the risk. The larger issues, uncertainty. In this market, success belongs to buyers who manage the entire chain from the auction hammer to the warehouse floor. Tea on offer has value, but only delivered tea has commercial value. Business insight. The logistics lesson for tea buyers is simple. Availability is not the same as deliverability.
Keep your wellness routine going strong all summer. Kachava's new travel packs help you stick to your daily ritual even when you're on the go. Just one packet of Kachava's all-in-one nutrition shake provides complete nutrition wherever you are, with 25 grams of protein, 6 grams of fiber, greens, adaptogens, and more. Simplify your daily ritual. Go to Kachava.com and use code NEWS for 15% off. That's KACHAVA.com, code NEWS.
Produced by Audavita Studios. Connect your voice to the world.